Hey everyone, it's Jack, and today I'm out at the Trisquel website. Trisquel Linux is a Spanish-based GNU Linux, and this looked really interesting, especially because it's a GNU Linux, and that means essentially that everything in this distro is free and open source. There's nothing proprietary whatsoever. So they were going by a complete free and open source philosophy. This is something I just discovered today, and it's from Spain. I thought, let's go international. That would be kind of fun to explore some international editions of Linux. And so here we're in Spain, virtually, and Trisquel, again, or Trisquel, I guess, is probably the exact pronunciation. So I'll try to keep to that. However, this is based on Ubuntu 20.04. And again, this is modified to be fully open source. All the software and everything, even right down to the drivers and everything, it's been peaked to be stable and run well on only open source everything. So this has kind of got my curiosity. I'd like to kind of see how this goes. And it's got a nice screenshot here. The website looks great and everything. Definitely think it's worth a look. And of course, the latest version is 10.0, which was just released as of the time of this video. So that's cool too. But I got a comment today from Travis Bear that I thought was really interesting. And so I thought I'd share it. Great video. It was nice to hear your journey. Mine has quite a few similarities too. I remember the first time I installed a sound card on my computer. Oh, so do I actually. That was back then. Installing something like a card was a quest. And my first computer was a Commodore 64. Wow. My dad's first computer, I think, was a Commodore 64 too, and that could have just as easily been my first computer. So yeah. First game system was an Atari 2600. Space Invaders. I've been playing Elder Scrolls since the first DOS game Arena. Wow, that is cool. I remember messing with Elder Scrolls, and then the Elder came over and said, "Hey, get away from my scrolls, you bum." And I said, get out of here. He said, "Respect for your elders." And I'm like, oh, okay. So then I went away. Okay, maybe that was a little made up. My first exposure to Linux was Loaf. Linux on a floppy, 1998. Wow, I totally forgot about Loaf. That is too cool. Been hooked on Linux ever since. I am spoiled with the freedoms afforded by open source systems and really notice the limitations of proprietary systems now. Yeah, that's kind of cool how once you really get embedded into the open source stuff and get used to the freedoms, you do realize how limited proprietary systems are, whereas before you got into the freedom, if you started out proprietary, then you think you're already free until you get into the freedom. And then you realize, whoa, I wasn't even close. So anyways, being that this distro I'm reviewing today is all about GNU Linux, free and open source everything, this kind of fit right in with that. Plus it brought back some really cool memories, things I forgot all about. So thanks, Travis, that was great. So looking at Trisquel here, the release name is Nabia, I think is how that's pronounced. Nabia release announcement. So that is the code name, and it will be supported with security updates until April 2025. So great long-term support there. As usual with a Ubuntu-based LTS release, we might as well just get right to it. I like the screenshots here. That's looking nice. I'm going to hit the download Trisquel 10 button here, and here it takes us over to the download page, and it shows that the image is 2.7 gigs. That's the live ISO image with the Mate desktop. Cool. I like Mate, so I think I might kind of stay with that one. We also have the LXDE and the KDE version, along with Sugar Toast with the Sugar Learning Environment. Actually, I'm not real familiar with that, so I might have to explore that at some point. Could be a future video, hard to say. Anyways, Let's go with Mate this time, break it up a little. And so down here we got a mirror selected, and I'm assuming that it gave us the closest mirror. So I'm just gonna hit download ISO, and then I'll load it in and be right back. Okay, here we are at the Trisquel boot menu, and it's at English by default, so I'm gonna hit English. And then I'm gonna select Trisquel without, or not Trisquel, Triskel without installing. I'm going to go with that. And let's take a look at the live environment and see how it looks. And even has a Triskel logo there. Wow, it kind of reminds me of the old Star Trek episode where they were on Triskelion, the planet, and they had to battle each other. Dun, 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 dun. Yes, a real Star Trek classic there. So here we are in the Triskel environment, and really nice background, and looks beautiful right off the bat. Wow. Liking the theming and everything. So the desktop has some default icons on there right off the bat. The home folder, network servers, our installer, and the trash can. And then down below, so we got our kind of our classic Mate look. And if you're a Windows user, it might kind of remind you a little bit of Windows XP. Back when Windows was almost good. I'm going to open up Triskel here, the installer, and I'm assuming it's probably like the Ubiquity installer here, which is kind of standard with Ubuntu, and we'll know in roughly 6 to 8 weeks. Here we go. All right, continue, and then the default is good there. And I think I'll go ahead and let that download updates while installing Triskel. Good with that. Less updates after the install. And then I'm going to go and erase disk. Install now. And we'll say continue and continue. Then we'll do our username. Continue. And there we go. We're off into our install, and I'll be right back when it ends. All right, we just finished here. So I'm going to go ahead and restart. On our way to Triskelion.
I bet 40 quatloos that the captain's gonna get his butt kicked.
And the captain says, something about that outfit and that sharp stick I find strangely hot, even though I might get gored with it. So, really nice splash screen though. Seriously, I like this. Very sharp looking distro. So if everything went fine, we should be seeing the login screen any second now. Okay, and here we are, and even a nice looking login screen set up here, so I'm gonna log right in. Very nicely themed and got a nice logo right off the bat. Really liking it. So here we're in, and we got our Mate desktop showing up right now, and so here we got our file manager. I'll just open that up real quick. I'm thinking that might be Kaja. Let me just take a quick look here. Yeah. And really nice file browser. I do like the Kaja browser. It is pretty nice. It's kind of right up there with Thunar, which is probably my top favorite. Nice previews there. And so here we got these pinned to the taskbar here, Kaja and the web browser. And I'm assuming that's probably Firefox. I'll just launch that real quick and see what that is. A browser. Ah. So I was right the first time when I said a browser. So right off the top of my head, I'm not quite familiar with a browser. So yeah, I think that might be based on Firefox, but I'm not 100% sure there. I could be wrong, but it kind of looks like it to me. And then here we have our menu, and we got our latte menu, has its classic look. And then over here we got our network settings here, and then speaker, and our calendar, clock, and then show desktop. And I like that they have the show desktop right over here in the lower right corner. That makes it really easy for Windows users to kind of migrate over. And so this kind of looks like another one of those distros that might be really nice as a transition distro for users, and at the same time you're completely escaping any proprietary stuff. So when you're thinking that this might be just another distro based on Ubuntu, you want to keep in mind that this is a GNU Linux distro, so everything in here is open source 100%, and so it's either copyleft or freeware and open source, so everything's free. They want to keep in line with the free philosophy, which is great. And so then over here we got our apps, and let's see what's installed by default. We got our browser web browser, which I'm thinking is Firefox reskinned, so to speak. and probably I don't know much about a browser at all, so but it looks like a good decent browser. And then we have Ice Dove Mail for mail client. Not real familiar with that either, actually. Typically I don't use mail clients, but it's nice to see that it's there. Then we have our Pigeon Internet Messenger Electrum Bitcoin wallet. How cool is that? Wow. I remember getting into Bitcoin like back in 2017. And it's nice to see that, you know, a Bitcoin wallet default in here. That's cool. I like that. I'm probably the only one that ever would, but I'm sure there's other Bitcoin traders out there, even though I've kind of moved away from that, more into stocks and so forth. But Bitcoin was fun. Then we got Jammy, another communication software, and also remote desktop viewer. That's cool. I wonder what that is. Ramina, maybe? Vinegare. I don't know how you pronounce that, but that looks like a really good RDP. You can use it for RDP. Looks like it's at SSH by default, but if you want to RDP like the traditional Windows way, you can choose that from here. And you also got a choice of Spice and VNC servers, so lots of great options here. That's nice to see. And I like that that's available by default as well. A lot of times you don't see that on a lot of distros, but again, it's kind of maintaining that comfort level for Windows users, so I like to see that. And then under graphics, we got our document scanner, our GNU or GIMP for manipulating photographs, Mate color selector, cool, and View Noir, which is one of my favorite picture viewers. And this is probably a little bit older version. I'm guessing it's probably around 1.6 probably, because we are on Ubuntu 20.04. Let's just see, yeah, 1.6. So that's kind of to be expected. If I was gonna want a newer one of that, I would probably just go out and build it from source, or if it's available in a DEB file or something, I'd probably get it from there. I don't think you can get it in a flat pack, but I believe the current version is around 1.8. And then, of course, we got our sound apps here for Zero, Cheese, Rhythm Box, Sound, kind of your standard stuff. And then we got VLC. And again, this is probably version 3.09, I'm guessing. 3.09.2. So that's kind of the older version. And again, if it were me, I'd probably update that to 3.0.16. which you can get from the TomTomTom repo and pop that in there. That's pretty easy to do too. If you need the 3.0.16 version, you probably wouldn't need it unless you want to stream some of your media from the internet. So in other words, if you wanted the media and then you went and opened up a network stream and you wanted to enter in a URL to a stream source, like an M3U8 source, then here's where you'd want to do that. But in 3.09, it doesn't work. I've never gotten it to work in 3.09. There was some kind of bug in this version, so you really need the newer version. If you're into Ubuntu 20.04 or Mint or this distro, and you do streaming and it's not working for you, that's why. You just need to add the VLC repo from TomTomTom, and then you'll be in business. You can download it and you'll have the latest version. All right, enough with rambling. Then we have games. Cool. So we got the IOROT software, which I think is Solitaire. Nice. All right. And yeah, the thing with Solitaire is you can't really pretend you know what you're doing, because even if I try to shuffle some cards around, It'll stick. I could have got away with it. Usually when I do that, it pops back up. Because actually I don't know how to play solitaire. I hate to admit it. It's true, I don't. So yeah, that was pure luck that I made that stick down there. All right, solitaire, cool. And we also have chess. How cool is that? Wow, I could play with my 13-year-old son and he'd kick my butt because he always does when we play chess. Of course, we play physical chess with the real pieces, but even on the computer, he'd probably still kick my butt. He is really sharp. Old Kevin there. Then we got Mahjong, another cool game. That's something I've played a lot, especially with Mrs. Boss. She happens to be Chinese, so she kicks my butt in Mahjong. Then we got Mines and Sudoku. Cool. I like Mines. I've always liked that game. It's like such a simple game, but it's really kind of addicting. And then under our accessories, we got our typical Mate accessories, the calculator and dictionary and all the good stuff here, the Mate terminal. I think I'll just open that up real quick since we're here and we got our first time stuff showing. And let's just kind of look at our kernel. It should be right around 5.04, I think. So we'll do a uname R here. 5.4, yeah, 5.4, not 04. 5.4.0-96 generic, and that's our LTS kernel there for Ubuntu 20.04. So stability is the name of the game here. All right, the terminal, yes, excellent. And then under other, we got back in time. So that's probably kind of like time shift where you can kind of go back and restore some of your stuff. Back in time is, of course, a very handy thing to have around. In case somehow you hose up your system, you install something and then it kind of goes haywire, you can kind of go in here and just kind of restore your old configuration, and it should put you back where you were like the day before. So that's a good thing to just kind of set up and have working. Then we got our GW installer, Mate disk image mounter, system monitor, and power stats. And if we go into our system monitor here, we can kind of get a quick look at our resources and relatively low CPU usage. And it's showing we're burning about 784.5 megs of RAM. Not too shabby. And our history is pretty flat. So yeah, not really using much in the way of resources right at the moment, which is always good. And then our processes and all that good stuff. And then we have our add remove software. So this is where we can kind of look at our software center, I think. And again, they make that friendly for Windows users who are probably more familiar with seeing add remove software, especially when they want to remove stuff. So the list of applications is out of date, so I'm going to just hit reload here. And so now it's going to go and synchronize. When I was in the terminal, I could have just ran sudo apt update too. That probably would have been a good idea. Nice. And so it's showing that a browser, web browser already installed here. And then of course we have all these other things and categories where we can choose and pick software and install them. So if we go to accessories, development, we got all these categories here, which makes it really easy to kind of go through and browse for software. Pretty nice list right off the bat. Education, games, there's 0 AD, cool, graphics, and so forth. So got all kinds of different apps in here that we can go. And then of course you can always use the search up here and look for something that you might want to install, like Inkscape. That's real original for me. And that's taken a minute there to populate. And that's kind of to be expected. That's not unusual when you first open up a software application for the first time. It'll usually go out and collect all the metadata and information out there regarding all the software. It downloads the whole list and everything. That does take a bit of time to populate all that in there, and then you got graphics and everything going on as well. Actually, that might be a lot of seconds. So maybe I'll just kind of let that run off to the side there. And then we'll just kind of keep exploring. And then we got our places. These are, of course, all the different places that you would navigate to in your file browser. And then you got your network area and a place to directly connect to your server if you're hooked up to a network and you got a shared folder there. And then our Mate search tool. And then under systems, we got our preferences, admin, software, and control center. So this will take us right directly to the control center. And then these preferences are also located in the control center, as well as some of your administration stuff, even possibly. And then we also got Synaptic here. Synaptic is probably my favorite package manager on Debian type distros. And there's our amateur radio categories. And actually a guy commented a few days ago, W6, something, I forgot off the top of my head, but he's an amateur radio operator, which I thought was really cool because so am I. I got my ticket way back when I was maybe 15 at the most. And that's when I got my first ticket. And I ended up as an advanced class license holder by the time I was 16-ish or 17-ish, right in there somewhere. And so, yeah, I can relate. That is cool. So yeah, I just wanted to say hi to him. It's kind of rare running across somebody with an amateur radio license now, especially in the computer world, even though the computer has really just enhanced so many things in ham radio with so many cool softwares. And Linux is really an excellent platform for that. But a lot of people anymore don't quite understand that it's really cool to get on a radio and be able to talk to somebody on the other side of the world. It's not really a challenge on a computer. Anybody can get on FaceTime or Facebook or whatever on your phone, FaceTime, and talk anywhere in the world. But on a radio, it's a whole different ball game. And so, yeah, it's a real interesting hobby. So we have all these different categories. And again, all you got to do is pop in here to the search and do a search for a software. And this should come right up because Synaptic really doesn't have to populate anything. And so here we got some results, and we got an ancient version of Inkscape, which is fine for this distro. So if you got users, if you're installing this for your Aunt Tilly or grandma or really anybody that's not real computer savvy, this is perfect because you don't really have to be cutting edge when you're on long-term support. That's just really, in a lot of scenarios, not necessary. Unless you're a power user and you need specific things, then it's kind of different. And of course, a power user would simply just go and get the flat pack of Inkscape. They would install Flatpak and then get the Flatpak and problem solved. So, yeah, nice. Really like Synaptic, so glad to see that in here as well. And it looks like this guy is still populating, so I'm not even sure if it's going to populate. I'll just hit a search in there, but, well, it looks like it's kind of done doing something. And that's the thing about these GUI apps. Sometimes they don't always, they can be kind of slow to get started the first time you run them. But if I hit that add remove again, let's see if it repopulates. There we go. Well, that's better. We just had to give it a little kickstart, I think. So if I hit Inkscape again, there it shows right up in the list, that time in the search result. Very cool. So we can see a description here. I don't really see the version like I do in Synaptics. And that's kind of one thing I really like about Synaptics is they're really good at showing the essential, in my opinion, information like the version. And then here you can click that and get a screenshot and it'll pop right up. And there's a screenshot of Inkscape. So this is laid out really nice, especially for somebody new to Linux coming over from Windows. This might feel a little bit more familiar, and it's very accessible. I like where it sits in the menu too. That is a nice choice for layout. And so let's look at our control center. This is kind of equivalent to, for a Windows user, being the control panel. So here we got our administration. It's even kind of set up like the classic Windows control panel. So very cool. And then we have our categories over here. So we got our add remove apps where we just were, software updates if you want to manually update, and user and group settings. So you can go in here and set your user settings, or you can add and remove users, and you can even set your icon. So we got our default icon, which I really kind of like. I think I'll just keep that. Nice. And then your printers, if you need to install printers, you got it right here. Startup disk creator, they make it really easy if you want to burn a ISO to a USB stick, if you're like wanting to create a startup stick. And then down here you got all your hardware stuff. Pretty standard stuff here for Mate. And then your internet, the look and feel. Let's try out appearance. And here, the appearance preferences are laid out really nice. And by default, we got the customize here for Trisquel. And then we can have a Mate dark look, which is cool. That's kind of almost like a cinnamon looking dark look. So that's cool. And we got the black Mate if you want it even a little more darker. And blue Menta, I think, is kind of a default in a lot of Mate releases. And then we got Graybird, which I kind of like. I think Graybird's a pretty cool theme, actually. Then we got a Radiant Mate, which has some gradients in it. Not that it rhymes with gradient. Radiant, gradient. And then there's Black Mate. Whoops. I was just there. And then Triskel Dark. Nice. I always want to call it Triskel. But according to the website, the pronunciation is actually Triskel. Tri like as in trim, and skell as in skeleton, as they put it. So I like this, actually. The Triskel Dark looks really nice. I think I'm going to kind of go with that. So yeah, let's darken it up a bit. Even though it's not the original state, but hey, pimping is what it's all about. And then we have our background selection. So here we can change around our wallpaper if we want. I really like the wallpaper that's there. I'm not sure I would even change it, but here you can hit this and you get instant results here when you click the picture. And that's one characteristic of Mate and XFCE that I really like, is you can just get instant feedback when you select your different wallpapers and other things. And there's the default. And then we have this, which has got the Triskel logo up there. Really cool. I like that, actually. That would probably be another contender for me on a wallpaper. And then we got a nice night scene there. And then some cool backgrounds like that in different shades of color, which is pretty nice. You can kind of match your schemes. I'm liking that. Yes. And just for the sake of saying that I changed the wallpaper, let's kind of go with maybe the purple or violetish color there. That looks kind of cool. Then we got our interface. So here, typically show icons and mod and menus and buttons are on by default, which is pretty much what I would kind of stick with personally. And we can see down here in our taskbar that we got 2 rows here in our taskbar. So that's kind of cool. That saves room if you got a lot of things open. So we got our file browser here and then our control center right underneath it. Nice. And then we have Mate Tweak. That's always a nice feature too. So in here we can kind of tweak our desktop. We can turn that off if you don't want any desktop icons. If you're kind of the type that doesn't like desktop icons, you can turn that off, and that's a nice option to have. I like that. And then we can turn on our computer if we want, like the equivalent to My Computer on Windows. So that would show there, and if you hit that, it'll just open up in the file browser and show your computer layout there. And of course, you can turn any of these on and off. You got your home folder showing by default, and your trash, network, and mounted volume. So network would be a network share if you have a shared folder, or you have access to a file server. That's kind of handy to have there. If you're not on a network, you can simply uncheck that and free up some space because it won't be relevant. And then mounted volumes, that's something that shows up if you plug in a USB stick or some other type of USB device, like a phone, and then that'll show up on your desktop there and you'll have easy access to it. And then here's our panel settings, and we can select a theme here. Trisquel is default. If you hit Redmond, it kind of will look more like Windows XP probably. Yeah, that's kind of the traditional look there, kind of what a lot of Mate users would see as well. And then you got the traditional, which is even more like what the Mate users would see. And that is down here, and then you got the top bar up here with your menu like this. So that's a quick and easy way to kind of switch out your layout, just so you know. And that was on Trisquel, so. And then our Windows settings. So our control placements by default are over on the right, and that's referring to these guys up here, your maximize, minimize, and standardize, whatever, and close. And then you can put them on the left if you're a Mac user and you're kind of used to that. You can do that, and they'll pop over here on the left side. So if you're coming over from Mac and you're more comfortable with them on this side, or if you just like them there anyway, then that's where you change that. And auto detect for high DPI monitors and screens, and then our font and window manager. So you can actually turn off your compositor if you want. That I probably wouldn't mess with. Otherwise, you're going to lose your previews down here and different window effects if you didn't know what you were doing and you didn't know how to switch it back because maybe you forgot. So Mate Tweak. Yes, I really like Mate Tweak. Main menu, so you can change the applications if you want. So this corresponds to the menu down here. And so if for some reason you want to add in some more categories like programming, like I might install Lazarus for a programming environment or Visual Studio Code or something. And so I might want that to show up in its own programming category, and I can turn that on here. And then it'll show up down here. But right now it won't click because there's not really any software installed that's relevant to programming. And then same with education. And I think you can even make your own custom one here by clicking on New Item. So that's how that works. And then screensaver settings, if you're one of those people that like screensavers, you can go in here and hit some of these cool screensavers and they'll show up. And there's a floating Mate and files from your pictures. You can do a slideshow, pop art squares, and I'm not sure if those are actually squares or if they'll pull pictures from your picture folders and like show up in the squares. I'm not really sure. But yeah, some cool little screensavers to choose from. And then personal settings, you got the About Me, and here you can change your icon. If you want your personal icon to be different, you can select an image file and it'll center it up for you. Or you can crop it the way you want it. Here you can manage your windows for your file manager. So like if you want to change something here in your Kaja manager, this is where you can do it. And of course your default view is icons, but if you like a list better, you can change it to list view. And when you close it, and if I close this and then open it again, it shows up as a list. So that's kind of how you can change around things. And I've always liked the list view actually, but for the sake of continuity, we'll just kind of keep that there. And then sort folders before files. That's something I like. Otherwise, it's going to be, for example, in alphabetical order, whether it's a folder or a loose file. And I kind of like having the folders first and then start over again in alphabetical order with the files below that. And so that's how that default is. But if you don't like that and you just like them all in alphabetical order, doesn't matter whether it's a folder or a file, then you can just uncheck that. And then here it'll show hidden files by default and so forth. So yeah, a lot of cool stuff in here. And then for your behavior, double click to open items is the default, but if you're somebody that likes to just click once, you can choose single click and it'll open it once. And then you can have captions for your icons if you want, your date format, and so on and so on. Oh, and personal file sharing, I missed that. So if you're on a network, here you can set up file sharing. It looks like by default file sharing must be set up already, so you can easily just check this to share your files publicly on the network, and then set some extra parameters here if you want. But that's nice to see. Very done for you, easy peasy to do. And then the rest of it is pretty much our standard stuff again, password settings and so forth, iBus preferences for languages. So if you want to have some alternate languages on here, such as Chinese Pinyin, iBus is a pretty easy way to take care of that. So very cool on the language settings. So that covers the control center there. And really nice theming, very polished. I gotta tell you, like I always tell you. But no, seriously, this is a really fantastic, impressive system. I like everything about it. I really can't think of anything I don't like. I would totally recommend this to anybody that wants something that just works. They want to bring something up and they just want it to work, and they want the stability of long-term support. This is a perfect thing. So if you want to use it yourself and just have something that just works, this is a great way to go. Or if you want to install it for somebody else and you don't want the headaches of them bothering you all the time, if it's for somebody that's not computer savvy at all, again, this is another great choice. You know, whenever I say things like this, you always got to kind of live in it for a while to know for sure. If you're ever setting things up for other people on Linux, you always kind of want to test it out yourself and just kind of use it for a week or two, just to make sure that there aren't any kind of issues, or if the person you're setting it up for does have issues, you'll kind of understand it better right off the bat. But with that said, I feel pretty confident personally that you could run this for quite a while and not really have any issues at all. If you need something bulletproof, I would definitely totally recommend this. I definitely give it 2 thumbs up. This is a great distro. I really like this Trisquel. Something I'm going to keep an eye on and keep around even. And with that, I hope this was helpful. And if it was, don't forget to leave that thumbs up. And hit subscribe. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.